How are we doing today, neighbors? Ian with eTrailer here. Appreciate you stopping by. Today we're going to be taking a look at our Kodiak brake hub and caliper assemblies for 7,000 pound axles on our 2023 East to West Ahara. Let's go ahead and get into a couple features and then that install. And our brake and hub assemblies here are going to be intended up to 7,000 pound axles. They will work with a 17.5-inch wheel. These are marine grade and have a nice Dacromet finish, which is going to help avoid any type of corrosion. So if you do a lot of coastal camping, you'll find that that seawater, even splashing up through the air, is going to cause some rust and corrosion, and these are going to help prevent against that. So these are going to be the option you'd want if you are going from that electric drum over to hydraulic. We've got some other options as far as these. DeeMaxx also makes a wonderful product. If I had to pick between the two, I'm probably going with the Kodiak because the full assembly kits are just a little bit easier to throw on. Plus I like the finish of them a little bit more. It seems like the DeeMaxx calipers are a little bulky and sometimes adjustments are needed there, but we didn't need to adjust anything with these Kodiaks. Everything was ready. Once we had it all set up and everything bled, you're ready to hop on the road and stop at a reasonable distance. And speaking of stopping distance, the intent of these again is going to increase your stopping power. Going from that drum to a disc is just the better option to do so, and these Kodiak brakes are going to take care of that problem. I wouldn't say the install on this is all that bad. It is just more labor intensive and time consuming than it is actually difficult to get done. You will want to pair this with a hydraulic actuator. We've already got ours set up on this, and so that made the process a little bit easier. So make sure you check those out when you're getting ready to throw those brakes onto your trailer. But either way, we're going to go ahead and hop into that install. I'll walk you through the whole process. If you happen to watch the video and feel like it's not something you want to tackle, go ahead and look into the dealer locator on our website. We'll get you a trained professional that can get those thrown on there for you. But let's go ahead and hop into that install for the DIYers. Now I want to preface this by saying we are going to be doing everything on one side in the video, but of course we're going to mirror everything we do on this side on the other side. So we're going to start by taking a 3/4 socket and removing our wheels. So we do have TPMS sensors on these tires as well, so I want to make sure we mark those of what position they're in. That way we can return it back to the home position. Now we'll need to remove the cap, so we're just going to take a real skinny flathead and tap that in between the cap and the hub. And you'll kind of just want to work your way around. Once you get it started, you can just tap it in. Now we'll just clean some of that grease out of the way and we'll pull off the retainer that's on the outside. Should be able to just do that with the flathead if you get underneath it and pry upwards. And our outer nut here is not going to be very tight, so you should be able to just take an adjustable and get that loose. And we'll set that one to the side. There's going to be one more retainer and then that bearing in there as well, but we should be able to just grab the whole hub assembly, kind of rock that back and forth and give slight outward pressure. And then that whole bearing and washer will fall out. We'll set those to the side. And then we want to pull off the drum assembly. There's two sets of wires back behind the assembly here, and we'll just go ahead and get those cut. Now we have 5 nuts that are 9/16 that will need to come off. We'll pull the assembly away from the spindle. Before we mount up the bracket that's going to hold on the caliper, we just want to get a little bit of blue Loctite on all of the threads. Should be 5 studs that we're going to be throwing that onto here. We're going to mount the bracket with the funneled area, the wider part facing forward, so that way it's pulling in air for cooling. And then we'll add on the nut. Then we'll just run those down in a star pattern so it pulls evenly. And then we'll go through and torque that to the manufacturer specification. Now you can use a bearing packer or you can just hand pack your bearings, but you want to make sure you get grease all the way up through and just kind of working your way all the way around. We'll go over one side and then the other. Take a little bit of grease, go in the inside of that race in the hub, and kind of go up onto that lip where we're going to be putting our seal and drop in that bearing. Now we're going to place the seal as flush as we can here at the top of the hole on top of the bearing. And you can use a seal driver, or if you don't have a seal driver, a hole saw with some tape over the blades is a efficient way to do that as well. And we'll just want to make sure we're driving that down as evenly as possible, so even if you feel that it's a little off, you may have to adjust. And we're just going to get that nice and flush. And if you oversize the hole saw a little bit, it'll make it to where it just presses it flush opposed to driving it down too far. I did go ahead and lube up the spindle here, so I've got that ready for our hub to slide over. We do want to be extremely cautious because we don't want to damage the seal at all, so we're going to try to center that as best as we can over the spindle, and we're working our way back, and that should just set there nicely. Now I want to take the outer bearing and pack it the same way we did the inner. Now we're going to take that outer bearing and slide that in, and we'll follow that up with the washer. You want to make sure it only lines up with that flat spot, so we'll throw that on next, and then just hand tighten the nut for now. Now we're going to come back, and with a 1.5 inch socket, we're going to torque that spindle nut to just 30 foot-pounds while we rotate the hub. So give that a good rotation here. Just double check after a rotation that it's good. And at that 30 foot-pounds, we're just going to break that loose. And right when that starts to feel loose is where we're going to stop. Now we're going to take that locking tab and push it back into place. Mount the caliper to the bracket. Then we'll slide the 2 bolts that mount that up into place and just get those started by hand. You may have to use a crow's foot on the upper bolt. We're going to follow that torque spec shown in the instruction manual. We'll just get both of those torqued. Grease the hub, so we'll just use the Zerk fitting on there and go ahead and start pumping that in. We're going to be looking for the grease to be coming out around the edges here. You can even give that a good spin while you're going along. Then you'll see that start to ooze out the front of that front bearing when it's full. We'll just give that one more good spin to help that evenly distribute. Put on the cap. I like to just get one edge started and then tap on that other side. Now we'll need to add our fluid to the pump here, so we'll just remove the cap and we're going to open up a new bottle of brake fluid. You can use either DOT3 or 4 depending on what you prefer. It will accept either. We're going to go with 3 on this particular fill, so I'm just going to get that poured into the reservoir here. What you can do is use a Gatorade bottle or something along the lines and a piece of rubber hose, and we're going to put that there on top of the bleed port on the pump to start. Then you can use a 7/16 wrench to break that loose, so I'm going to get that in a good position. Get our rubber hose put on top of that, and then we're going to actuate the brakes. We've got the valve open, and we'll apply that. You'll see the fluid going through the tube. Just run that for a second and close it back up. And what we're looking for is, you're going to see in the hose right now we've got no bubbles, so when we actuate the brakes we shouldn't have any bubbles coming out. We should have a nice clear line, and once we've got that we can start moving our way down the system. Now we're going to come to the furthest brake away from the actuator. We're going to put on our little rubber tube on one of the bleeders, take a 5/16 wrench, and we're going to need somebody at the front of the vehicle either running the towable, or in our case we're using just a portable controller box that we can hook up to. So I'm going to have Jesse up front helping us, and he's going to go ahead, and as soon as I tell him open, he's going to go ahead and turn the pump on. So I'm going to go open, alright, and closed, and he'll shut that off. Okay, and we're going to repeat the same process on the bottom bleeder. Alright, open, and closed. Okay. And now we've got good clear fluid coming back to this back brake. We're going to keep moving our way forward, just going through the system. So we're going to go to that front left now, since that's going to be our next closest, and hop over to the other side, do the right rear, and then that right front. Now we just need to go through and make sure we torque all those lug nuts to the manufacturer specifications. And we'll use that same star pattern that we took it down with. And that's going to do for a look at of our Kodiak hub and brake caliper assemblies on our 2023 East West Ahara. My name's Ian with eTrailer. Appreciate you watching.